going over Desperate Allies. I'm not going to talk about anyone in particular, but I'm going to talk about the way to use Desperate Allies in your Orc army. And probably some suggestions of what you would want to use and what you don't want to use. Okay, so we've gone over the Chaos Space Marines, which are allies of convenience. Allies of convenience are basically enemy units that cannot be charged, shot, attacked in close combat, or targeted with psychic powers. You can still, your warlord traits don't affect them. You can't get within 1 inch, and are not counted as being friendly units for targeting powers. Cannot repair yourself. You cannot use any warlord traits of the allies of convenience, anything like that. Desperate Allies is pretty much all the same, except it adds the one eye open rule. One eye open at the start of each of your movement phases. Each unit within 6 inches of a Desperate Allies unit must roll a d6. I would imagine it means both factions. On a 1, that unit cannot move, manifest psychic powers, shoot, run, or charge that turn. They're too busy watching for betrayal. This also counts as zooming flyers and swooping monstrous creatures. May not pivot and must instead move minimum distance required. So basically, if you're running Desperate Allies, or even Come the Apocalypse, which also adds that the same thing as Desperate Allies, except they cannot deploy within 12 inches of each other. So the idea with both Desperate Allies and Come the Apocalypse is you want to try and keep them away from each other. I think the best way to do that is using your reserves. And by using reserves and deployment tricks, you should be able to keep your allies, your Desperate Allies, away from your main units so they can actually do something every turn. Because you know you're always going to roll that one when you need it the least. When you need that unit to do something, that's when it's going to roll that one and do nothing. So what we're talking about is units that can, because you want to have an army primarily of units that, go down a little bit. So you want to have 1 deep strike, 2 outflank, and even maybe 3 infiltrate, so they stay away from each other. And if you can do this with your allied detachment, then you don't have to worry, at least for most of the game, you're not going to have to worry about your units getting close enough to each other to roll that one. So, and I think if you're going to run it that way, it's probably the best way to do it. So what are some good armies that have a lot of good potential deep striking and outflanking options? Well, I think for me the obvious one is the one that I'm going to be using is Tau. Tau with their suits that can deep strike, crude outflanking, riptides that can deep strike. You've got a lot of things that you can keep. You can basically keep the entire allied detachment in reserve and bring it in where you need it, either outflanking or deep striking. So I think Tau is a very good option. And Chaos Demons, again, they can all deep strike, or at least most of them can deep strike. And you can even boost the demons with your weird boys. Cursed Earth, or, summon more demons. So demons, get a few units of demons that can deep strike is not a bad idea. Probably 3 would be, but this is the order descending order in which armies provide this ability the best. You've got Dark Eldar with the Webway Portal. And lastly, I'd say number 4 would be Necrons. Oh, I forgot Flyers too. Flyers is a good way for reserves. So add that to the list. So number 4 would be, so you got deep striking, outflanking, infiltrate, and flyers. So Necrons have the flyers that you can use. Great way to get reserves done. And no matter what you do, of course, there's nothing that's, unlike 6th edition and 7th edition rules, the level of allegiance doesn't affect scoring units. So every unit in your allied detachment is still going to be scoring, even if there come the apocalypse. There's nothing in here that prevents them from being scoring units. So that's the important thing. Whereas in the old rules, they weren't scoring. So these are the 4 armies I would consider going with this kind of reserve tricks if you're going to run as Desperate Allies. So again, I'm going to go over Tau a little bit because that's what I have. In fact, that's what I'm going to probably play tonight. I'm going to have another color. I'm going to go dark blue because my Tau are blue. So in an allied detachment, you do get the objective secured for your troop unit, and you do get 1 HQ, 2 troop. Now this is the allied detachment. You don't have to use the allied detachment, of course. You got 1 of each of elites, fast and heavy. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in the Tau Codex as far as building a unit. So HQs are building an allied detachment. HQ obviously would be, you'd probably want to stick with a commander suit. Commander. I'd probably buff the crap out of this guy. You know, give him the iridium armor. Shield generator. Stim injector. And I'd probably buff the crap out of him with give him all the shooting goodies, the command and control node. And what's the other one? It's been a while since I played Tau, you know that? I know what they do, I just don't remember what they're called. Pure Tide, of course. And the multi-spectrum sensor suite. So there you get your buff commander. So he's not going to shoot anything. You could also give him a drone controller if you can include some drones, which is always an option. But he's going to be he's going to buff your suits basically. So yeah, you've got 2 options here, which I really like. Since you are taking a commander, you can take a bodyguard, which means you can fit in those 3 suits basically without a force org slot. So we got a bodyguard times 3. So this is basically a free HQ slot. They don't take a slot, so you can get these 3 suits in there without using a slot, which is just freaking awesome. And then you can start giving them whatever you want. Fit them with the thing. I think 6 fusion blasters is the way to go. Yeah, we got your commander, you got fusion blasters that ignore cover, that, so they ignore cover. They can get tank hunter or monster hunter. It has been a while since I played Tau, hasn't it? Yeah, so they ignore cover and rerolls to hit. So you've got 6 fusion blasters that are hitting on 4s with rerolls, ignore cover, and monster hunter or tank hunter. So that's really, really awesome. And if you deep strike them in, of course you may not get the pure tide, I'm not sure. It says at the start of the movement phase if they're not on the board. I don't know how that works exactly. I think you can choose the order that happens, but I'm not entirely sure. So you may not be able to get that ability to turn the deep strike. But still, says 6. They still get the 6 twin link fusion blasters that ignore cover, just for free. And so that's going to be a free unit. That's the bodyguard. They're a little more expensive than your standard suits because they have the higher leadership. So they're basically the chasseurs out of the Crisis team. For troops, of course, I would obviously go Kroot, because they can outflank. You can do a minimal unit of 10. I would always give Kroot sniper rounds and a Kroot hound. So snipers and 1 hound, so they get acute senses. And you can run a minimal unit of 10 plus this hound. You know, I might want to run a little bigger unit so they can actually be pretty effective. But yeah, troops obviously need Kroot. And you can take 1 or 2 units of those. Even 2 minimal units of Kroot gives you a lot of scoring power, really. Especially if you set up the objective specifically near the table edges so you can outflank into them. For elites, you got 2 good options, I think. Actually, there's really nothing elite that can go wrong with in the Tau book in general. So you got your crisis suits, your stealth suits, or your Riptide. Yeah, if you're running the Bodyguard, you can definitely run Riptide. And I would actually even probably deploy this away from the rest of your army. You know, put them off, deploy your orcs like over here, and put the Riptide over here in the corner and cover or something. Off by itself, so you don't have to worry about the one eye open rule. So the Riptide, if you're going to take it, I would actually consider deploying it, depending on the deployment zones and how many orcs you have and stuff like that. Because the gun definitely has the range that you don't even have to worry about it. So you take the ion cannon, ion accelerator with a 70 units range, and just sit back behind the orcs and don't worry about it. And you can sit on an objective, move to objective, whatever. Riptides are awesome. Stealth team is a good option. I think they're a little expensive for what they do, but they do give you that stealth and shrouded. And they can deep strike in, just like the Crisis suits, but the Crisis suit is going to be cheaper for more firepower. And then, so I think going to the Crisis suits is the way to go. And you can literally give them any weapons you want. If you take the fusion blasters on the Bodyguard, then you can give these guys flamers, you can give these guys plasma rifles, you can give these guys burst cannons. I'd probably go with plasma or burst cannons. And again, always give them 2 weapons. Don't twin link. Do not twin link. Two weapons. So 3 crisis suits, deep striking with 6 burst cannons. That's 24 shots. I love that combination. Do not twin link your crisis suit weapons by 2 weapons. So that's with the elites. So it gives you, this is where your power is going to be. So, you know, I'd probably go with plasma. I think you've got enough anti-infantry with the Ludas or with the orcs. You don't really need to worry about the burst cannons. But I'm definitely go plasma rifles. Would not be a bad option. Or maybe even more fusion blasters if you really think you're going to be coming up against something vehicle heavy. Fast attack is where things kind of drop off a little bit. There's not a lot in here that's going to be useful. The marker lights in general aren't going to be that useful to you because you're not going to have enough Tau units to use them. Piranhas is not a bad option, but you will have to deploy them. You have to deploy them away from everything and then just run up and try and fusion blast or something. I still like piranhas with the disruption pods and fusion blasters. They get kind of spendy, but they're going to be really good. And the other option, of course, is the flyers. The Tau flyers aren't that great. I would avoid the Shinshok Bomber, but the Razor Shark Strike Fighter isn't that bad for the price. It's definitely something to consider for your fast attack slot if you want one. And heavy support doesn't really have anything that will fit in with the theme of reserves. So you got 2 options here, I think. You can either take a tank, a hammerhead with a rail cannon, or even a hammerhead with the ion cannon. Again, sit back behind the orcs, fire along with this massive range, and just start dropping strength 8 AP, and start dropping battle cannons on people. The other thing I think you would consider is the snipers. These guys are cheap. They are really good for what they are. And I think they're really one of the underused units in the Tau Codex simply because the heavy supports are so good in the Tau. But that's not saying anything bad about the sniper drone teams. It's saying how good the other units are. But if you're taking as an allied detachment a unit of snipers, it could really be pretty good. So we're talking Yeah, they're just cheap on points. They come with 3 sniper drones that use the long shot pulse rifle, which is 48-inch range sniper rifle AP5. And that because of the drone controller and the dude that controls them is BS5, all the drones are BS5. Oh, and the rifles are actually rapid fire. So if something gets close, you get 2 shots, which is really awesome. And they're really cheap to add more guys if you want to. You have to go up to 9 drones and 3 controller guys, 3 marksmen. So it can get a little spendy if you want to go up that far, but if you just want like half a dozen, just like 6 drones and 1 dude, it's going to be a good, good use for your heavy support slot. If you want, take it. But you know, that's definitely not something that I would consider mandatory. But sticking with the buff commander and crisis suits for your Tau allies would probably be the way to go. So that's about it for this video. If you wanted to consider allies or desperate allies, don't be afraid of using them. Just you just have to use them. Think about how you're going to use them and work around that one-eye open roll, because you know you're always going to roll that one when you need it the least. When you need the unit to do something the most to win the game is when you're going to roll that one. So by using the reserves and other tricks, well, mainly reserves, not only do you add something to the Orc army that it really is missing with that large variety of deep striking and outflanking units that can come in behind the enemy, but you're also getting around the one-eye open roll. So I think it's a great combination. And then so something with Tau, you add in all those meltaguns, which I said in my previous allies video. Meltaguns are one thing you can definitely use in the Orc army, and Tau can bring a lot of them, and better ones. So that's going to be it for this episode of Book of the Beast. Talk to you guys later.